Gran Turismo takes the term, based on a true story, to a whole other level. The true story of race car driver Jann Mardenborough is brought to life with exotic cars traveling at 200 miles per hour on camera, experimental angles that bring the audience into the shot, and Jann himself behind the wheel. The raw, gnarly shots of racing captured in this film have never been done in the history of cinema. Let's get into it. Something ultimately unique about this movie is that the stunt driver for the actor is the real person that is being played. Yes, Jann Mardenborough does the bulk of stunt driving for Archie Madekwe. And he couldn't be happier about it. Archie is not a fan of being inside the tiny cockpit of the race car.
I have nothing but respect for Jann. Being in the car is the most difficult thing I have ever done.
This might be the first film ever that the person being depicted is also the person doing the stunt work. Obviously, Jann Mardenborough is an impressive guy, but he never thought there would be a movie made about his life. When he walked onto set, he said it was one of the most surreal experiences he's ever had. And this is coming from someone who went from zero driving experience, well, aside from the many hours of racing video games, to being behind the wheel at 140 miles per hour with just 8 months of training. Speaking of 140 miles per hour, one of the biggest challenges the production team faced when shooting this film was finding the technology that was able to capture all the cars traveling at those high speeds. We're talking 200 miles per hour most of the time. The director, Neil Blomkamp, wanted everything to look and feel as physically real as possible. They ended up using this camera called Rialto, which is a detachable front end of the Sony Venice.
Which makes it a very small unit, so we can put it in tiny places, which is ideal for cars.
The team behind this film couldn't speak more highly of Rialto, because without it, they would have had to build an entire race car from the ground up with a different camera as the centerpiece. It also gave them the freedom they wanted to be intentional about when the shot was inside the car versus outside. So, not only did they take a completely fresh approach to capturing vehicle speed on camera, but they did some experimental photography in order to make the audience feel like they were really there. They wanted the viewer to feel like they were moving with the car. They wanted the movie to feel like a visceral experience for the viewer. The idea behind this was to create something fresh. They didn't want to recreate something that had already been done in another film about racing. Now, part of that included eliminating every element that wasn't covering speed. That was the focal point of every captured frame. They also wanted the camera super low to the ground most of the time with lots of tarmac, which in racer terms is like the runway the car is zooming down.
We were really able to race in a way that's never been done on film before.
Around the world, I mean that literally, they truly do go to several of the most famous racetracks from all over the planet. I'm talking Austria, Budapest, Slovakia, and Dubai.
We have exotic cars from Lamborghinis to McLarens, all the way to LMPs, Le Mans prototypes.
And not only did they have the most exotic cars in existence racing on the most famous tracks in the world, these cars were really traveling at insane speeds just inches away from one another. So we know Rialto was used inside the car, but to capture those insane speeds on the track, they used unstabilized cameras that were attached to the outside of the car.
We're not using fully stabilized. It's very raw, very gnarly, especially the nice stuff in the rain.
Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with everything that goes into being a race car driver, myself included, you might be surprised to find out how much goes into the athletic training aspect of it. Archie was really going through it when he started his training. Dude was literally throwing up on a daily basis because he didn't want to cheat us out of any of the car shots. Every shot of him inside the cockpit is 100% real. He's actually driving cars at 140 miles an hour.
There's a reason these guys are some of the best athletes in the world, because it is one of the most taxing things.
He said nothing could ever prepare you for that kind of intensity unless you're just built that way.
We learned pretty quickly that I'm not, and I am an actor.
There was also an issue with his height. We've established that the inside of those cars are incredibly tight.
Having the actors like Archie inside the torture chamber known as the car.
It was such a small space that Archie couldn't even really fit inside it. When Jann would stunt drive for him, they had to remove the actual seat of the car when he was done so Archie could get back in it. Torture chamber indeed. Something everyone describes as a beautiful accident was actually Jann's role in the film. He was originally only brought on to do one scene. Obviously, we know he's an incredible driver, but the entire production crew was shocked with how great he was hitting marks and driving in a way that was oriented towards the production. After essentially blowing everyone's minds, he ended up staying on for the rest of the shoot and was also utilized as this incredible pool of information for everyone, particularly when it came to improv.
So if there was something very specific about Jann's life that I needed to improvise around, he was there the entire time.
With the near impossible, intimate shots from inside the cockpit, the high-speed intensity captured at angles almost too close for comfort, and real athletic training that turned your average actor into a professional race car driver, give or take a bit of daily vomiting, this movie truly went out of its way to blow your mind. What's your favorite moment from Jann Mardenborough's true story?